Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. We are continuing our series with the University of Michigan Power Hour Entrepreneurial Club. And it's been great talking to all of these students. And today we have senior at University of Michigan, Amulya Parmar. It's great to connect with you. And you got a pretty cool company, UNSTUCK, where you instantly build trust and convert more of your visitors with a guided virtual tour. So talk about, we were talking briefly, kind of, you're a senior at the University of Michigan, talk a little bit about where your company is and where you kind of are forecasting it 12, 18 months from today.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, real quick, we are basically a SaaS product that lives on businesses' websites. So think, right now our focus is property managers, and ultimately we help them deliver their most important sales and operations process, their tour in a personalized format to every one of their website visitors. They can turn more of those website visitors into leads and sales. Now we charge monthly SaaS subscription for each of those communities, and we're doing about 22.5K in MRR, and are hoping to get to 80K MRR by the end of this year.
Okay, it's great. It's great. So let's kind of talk about where the seed was planted and when this started.
Yeah. So think about this, John, and everyone's listening. Why we focus on the tour is because the tour is involved in some of the most important buying decisions. And as a college student, the two most important buying decisions we make, one is the college, and then where we live once we're in college. Both revolved around some form of tour experience, some form of online shopping, quote unquote, shopping experience. And then some form of, okay, I'm ready to decide. In some cases, it might be with limited in-person exposure or none at all. And, as someone going through the process, one of our goals was, how do we make that process a lot more streamlined? And then ideally, from a business perspective, because I used to work with a lot of e-commerce businesses, I saw these property managers, whether it be apartments or universities, they're basically like e-commerce websites, whether they realize it or not. And their job is to convert more of those website visitors into customers. So what if we made basically a better experience that lets them showcase their products super easily on their website so that their website visitors feel more comfortable buying the product, and ultimately they do a better job showcasing the product.
Yeah. I love it. All right. So now let's talk about kind of how this idea came about, right? Yeah. So as far as you and your partners and what you did to start the company, because it sounds like you understood the pain and the obstacle of the consumer. Now, a lot of people sometimes see that, but they don't then build a company. So talk about how the company was built and how you began to scale it.
So think about this. We started far more as a marketing agency, John, but in the beginning. But how do you get that first checkpoint? Because I used to work with a lot of smaller businesses, but when it comes to working at college, okay, imagine trying to sell to the people who normally sell you. Okay, so basically you work with these like $15, $25, $50 million, property managers. They're used to throwing things up the ladder and getting lost. Any kind of sales pitch, like these people are just like normal agents are just walking through the building every time trying to pitch them with new advertising services, new marketing, because they're used to it. That's what they get all the time. Now imagine you're a student. They want to sell you $10,000 contracts. They don't want to be buying $10,000 contracts from you. And I think in order to build the trust, like our story starts with like literally knocking on every single apartment door in Ann Arbor. We knew that there was a problem point. We saw an opportunity, but then comes to, okay, how do you get someone to buy, right? And before we get someone to buy or even, potentially get into our services, we had to legitimately prove our value. So we try to over deliver value, just to the first person who allowed us to like sit in the room with a decision maker. And then once we saw the door, they didn't open the door, but we saw a window and we just smashed that window.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. That's what you got to do. Well, I think a lot of times people are used to doing things and seeing things the way that they have always done them. And so, their frequency of looking at certain things and their angles are, just what they are. And so they need people who are seeing and hearing things differently to show them, and then monetize, how they can then monetize and quantify and make more money doing it. So I love that. And, I love talking to everybody in your club. Everybody's so full of ideas. I forget that I'm actually talking to college students because the ideas are so the solid, and everybody's business is at a little bit different level. But how do you balance, school, social, building a business?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. And I think for us, it's been like this constant give and take. One thing that you've heard: don't rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
But when it comes to college student, I think you're constantly doing it, and some students do it better than others, right? But for me, I think the one you're really the great blessing was University of Michigan has been a fantastic fertilizing ground for ideas. So if I would recommend anyone, entrepreneurs like potentially listening to this, think about this, right? The one interesting thing about going to school in the Midwest is when I've interacted with many founders who work, in like West Coast universities, Stanford, etc., and then even East Coast universities. And one thing you'll notice, like people for some reason are very, very independently driven. But when you're working in the Midwest or a place like Ann Arbor, you just get a general sense people are a lot more collaborative, right? A lot more connecting. And then a place like Ann Arbor is great because there's so many entrepreneurial resources to take advantage of. So, you could have basically, throughout college, you could consistently me talking about ideas, working with ideas, workshopping, cold emailing.
Yeah.
And like you see me doing that the whole time in college. And my grades have certainly not looked as stellar as, when it was, in freshman and sophomore year. But I can genuinely say, school is not the hardest thing about school. Right? The hardest thing even about school really is to get a job, right? That is the most important for most careers. Like that is the most important thing for a university, at least. Just like high school, the most important thing, ultimately everything is for a university, acceptance letter. And so I think there's two mental switch. The first mental switch is startup is like even a little bit risk. So I've been an asymmetric risk taker. I applied for your internships. I'm really blessed. I got some amazing internships and worked at amazing companies. But the next step is, okay, what's the next level of asymmetric risk? Starting a startup in college.
Yeah.
So, you get a little bit of funding. You actually know what you're doing in terms of product. I've been following product and startups ever since high school, and iteration process with the right resources can take you pretty far.
Yeah, I love it. Let me ask you a question. You're talking about your grades suffered. So if you were getting an A instead of a B, or a B and a C instead of a B, would your business be any different today?
Interesting.
Right. What's more?
That's such a nuanced question.
Like, does it matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the more nuanced answer is it starts to matter when it's like one day before the deadline or one day before the exam, and suddenly you have either a project proposal you can send to a customer, or you could go ahead and or develop this piece of software, because now we went from marketing to like a SaaS piece of software,
right?
And or you could like launch this new feature the customer's asking, or fix a bug,
right?
Or you could go ahead and finish the homework and get the full credit for, or study for the exam, extra 2 hours. So you give up.
Unless you're gonna, if you're going to use those grades to get into a master's program,
yes.
To if you're going to be a doctor, if you're trying to get into law school, but if you're going into business, does it matter if you get a B or a B plus, a C plus or a B minus if you're building your business?
I at this point, no. But if you asked me 1.5, 2 years ago, I couldn't. It's just a mental thing you cannot process. It's like
right.
Yeah, you just can't. You can't process it after trying to get good grades for your whole life.
Let me ask you a question. So you're a senior. So you're how old?
I'm 22 now.
So you're 22. So it was interesting because when I was in college, I don't remember people kind of doing startups and starting businesses. I did a startup when I graduated college. I started an internet company. I'm 50. I was 23. So a little 1 year older than you. Started an internet company with my brother and a buddy. We ended up selling it to the largest internet professional service firm in the world. Fast forward, I'm now a business coach, coaching people all over the world. And I love it. But I don't. So what sparked all of these college students, not only at Michigan but all over the country, starting companies while in college?
Yeah.
When did that begin? I love it. I wish I would have done it, but it wasn't even a thought.
Here's why. I think at the underbelly of what we've been facing is like the rise of two things. One, I know back in the intercom, back in like the internet boom, one thing that our generation started growing up with that you guys started having later on was like forums, right? All these internet forums, all these businesses of these group like interested people suddenly meeting each other and finding unique niches where you could come together ideas. I've been doing forums or seen the power of the online business for a very young age. And with the other thing is like, John, your story with the internet business, or it's just like constantly certain people just gravitate towards certain things. And like if you've heard of communities like indiehackers.com, producthunt.com, these are now our inspiration. But you see our inspiration, our generation is starting this when they're 15, when they're 14. And I've been an avid server of Product Hunt since I was 14 or 15. And you're seeing folks, starting that when they're 14 and 13 now, and they're picking up languages that's just making it so much easier to build product. Yeah. And so one amazing thing with entrepreneurship is we're dealing with this layer of abstraction where front-end code is getting easier and easier to write. Back-end code, back-end as a service is becoming easier and easier to replicate. And this is specifically when it comes to tech businesses. And to some degree, that's also being made possible with the proliferation of just communication and access with just non-tech businesses as well.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm so glad I asked that question because I loved your answer, and it fills in kind of kind of the continuum of how I can think about it now. So I get exactly where you're coming from. So fast forward 5 years.
Yeah.
Fast forward 5 years. Tell me what your entrepreneurial journey you think will look like. I don't believe anything's a straight line, but just forecast for me if you can for the fun of it.
Yeah. This is such a hard question, John.
That's why I asked. We don't.
Like I'll start with a big idea, big thought process. Like, our goal is to make it super streamlined and super easy for people to build a tour, right? And then have the best mechanism for them to deliver that tour. And so, ideally, you start to have a team in place where, like, the first thing is I'm very technical product. The first thing is ideally I have a team surrounding me that I help run the product processes, not just engineering, and I'm directly the product person interfacing, but I have, there's some level of product people and engineering team that I'm consistently working with, and they're building the product and cycles and the product loops to help us grow. And having amazing talent that I've been able to make friends with in college to be able to work with me on some of those endeavors, as well as people remotely and across the world. Yeah. So that's the first thing from a product perspective, because that's where my heart and soul is. The second thing is an amazing partner and affiliate network for our business, where businesses across the world are signing up for tour, as well as smaller media marketing agencies, videographers, anyone who can go ahead and want to help produce content for these businesses. Suddenly, these affiliates and these partners are helping use tour to help serve their customers better. And so, ideally, our name Tour, usetour.com or tour.video, becoming synonymous with helping businesses better produce and take some of their existing video assets or multimedia assets and helping them be more effective. And so like universities, senior living, student living, multifamily, thinking of tour as one of the options, right, for a tour. And that's like, there's marketing involved there, there's process. As a founder, right, I think there's like a couple things, right? Like there's like the fundraising story and like the SaaS story, right? So what can we do about our revenue to continue to grow? What is the revenue per head, like in terms of like, how much revenue are we doing per head of on our team member? Then also, what are we fundraising to help, break the story? Like what are our comps? And so those are journeys we're still figuring out. We're trying to fundraise at least in some portion to be able to help tell more stories and be able to provide more of those branched outcomes that we're looking for in business. But as for me in particular, right, John, I want to be comfortable. I'm comfortable to build. I don't want any I don't want pressure, financial pressure for my imagination, right?
Yeah.
And as long as I have that, and I say that meaning it's like a
I know
small
what
thing.
you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's great. That's a great answer. And I love your drive. And I can't wait to watch your career through the years and through the decades. I'm learning so much talking to everybody in your club. It's very, very inspiring. And it's great. All right, quick speed round. You ready?
I'm ready, John.
Uh,
And then I
uh,
have a question for you.
yeah. Yeah. What's your question for me?
Yeah. So my question for you is, John, if you were to give advice to, a budding internet entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
That was really important. How important was your partner involved in this in your initial company? And then what advice would you give, a budding internet entrepreneur in this new, decade?
Well, I had two business partners. One was my brother and a buddy of ours, and we had a phenomenal partnership. Where there and because we each did something specific to our unique ability. I did the sales. I did grew the sales team. I led the sales. I did the business planning. I kind of led that business planning element of things because I had studied it all through college and just through tapes and books that I had read. My brother was the head creative and ran our creative division. And then our business partner kind of did the day-to-day. So we each understood our roles and responsibilities in a very specific and measurable way of what we needed to bring to the table. And that's why it worked. And so my advice would be, if you're going to bring in a partner, everybody's got to understand what their role is. And you want each role to be within a unique ability that they can really bring to the table, and it just radiates from them and allows things to flow through them. Also, you need the proper mentors and coaches around you, and you have to be willing to ask for help, because where the older generations can learn from you, you can also learn some core fundamentals from them. And so your generation is so smart. Just remember to ask for help and surround yourself with the proper guides. That's what I would recommend. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's hit that
All right.
line, John. Thank you so much. That was
You're
awesome.
welcome. All right, quick speed round for you. A TED Talk article or book that's had the biggest impact on you.
Probably Paul Graham's essay, but also there's this great blog, Silicon Convict. Story about basically him becoming, studying basically other founders as a personal and like a scalable engineer. Just look up Silicon Convict. Fantastic set of articles. Maybe you haven't heard of.
All right, good. Thank you for that. If you were gonna teach a college course on one subject, what would it be?
Full stack engineering for college students. The easiest way to get started with full stack engineering, and I've done it. I've taught over 50 people on Fridays, just so they could, and I've seen unbelievable outcomes. And so full stack engineering for college students.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Procrastination is like a credit card. It's fun until you get the bill.
Yeah. It's a good one. Finish this sentence. I believe.
I believe that sometimes asking for help is the best way to make friends.
All right, good. I love it. Tell everybody your ideal clients and how they can connect with you.
Yeah. We're working with property managers, small businesses across the United States, whether it be apartments, senior living, student living, and we would love to help you build a better tour. If you're a student or you're a budding entrepreneur, feel free to get connected to Amulya at Use Tour. I'd love to help, and we're actively hiring for engineers and any business folks. So we'd love to get connected. It's been a blessing, John. Thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you, Amulya. This was great. My parents always raised me that I can learn something from people older and younger than me, and I'm so glad that I took that to heart at a very, very young age, because I've always kind of lived by that philosophy. And I've learned so much from you and everybody in your club that I've interviewed. We've done 12 in total. We're doing 12 in total. And so I want to thank you for taking time. Congratulations on your success. I'm excited for you to just kind of grow this company and watch it along the way. Think community. I'm a business coach. I work with successful people all over the world who are stuck. I get them unstuck. And what I love about this podcast is I get to have guests on like Amulya, And he provides also a path of getting unstuck. You said a lot of great things today, and I loved everything you had to share. I'm going to extract one thing, which was kind of a through line through what you talked about, which is just the energy that you brought to the table and the passion. And I think, community, whatever you do, make sure you pick something that you can carry that frequency and vibration, energy and passion for what you love. I'm a big fan of everybody being in their unique ability and doing what you love. Some of you may be listening and saying, well, I'm in a job that I don't like and I can't get out because I have bills to pay and a family to raise. That may be true, but keep a business plan alive and do something just minutes a day to keep it alive. I interviewed this phenomenal person today named Jennifer Reese. You can look her up on my podcast on my website, jondwoskin.com. She runs a huge PR agency that she started in July of 2019. We talked about this very topic, and she hires freelancers who want to kind of just dip their foot into the business so they can start to get a feel. So there's always an option if you find a way. And reach out to mentors like we talked about and ask people what could be a way just to get started. Think community, thanks so much for tuning in. If anybody can benefit from this, send them this interview. Amulya, give them one more way to connect with you.
Absolutely. Amulya@UNSTUCK.com. It's so great to meet you.
Yeah.
So great to think, fam. And John, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much. You can reach me at jondwoskin.com. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Amulya. This was great.
Yeah, awesome.